let's continue then with the next topic. No, just go back, please. Vamos para atrás a la portada. So I'm going to talk about the interculturality and how translation students acquire it. So my lecture name is Beyond Words, Cultivating Intercultural Competence through Task-Based Translation Teaching, and this is part of an ongoing research, which is my dissertation thesis. And well, let's see. So today I'm going to present the introduction, the theoretical framework, and the methodological framework. So, very good. So this study investigates the task-based translation teaching approach as a powerful framework for developing a crucial yet often overlooked skill, which is intercultural competence. The background of this study, main axes are the task-based language teaching, which is the base of the task-based translation teaching, the translation teaching, the practice, the performance of translation, and the intercultural competence, which is the thing I want my students develop with it. So, the problem I found is that the current methodologies, at least where I teach, are quite focused on only teaching the technical part, the techniques of translation and practice those techniques, but lack on teaching how the culture affect the decision the decisions the translator takes while translating or performing translation. The rationale for my research is that the research addresses the pedagogical gap by integrating a socio-cultural constructivist approach into translator training, and well, it aligns with the cultural turn, which is one of the most important theories using it in translation studies, which posits that a translator must be more than bilingual. It's not just that you learn on how to speak in English. Translator must be, of course, bilingual, but also bicultural and interculturally competent, which is for me the most important part. And well, in some cases, I saw that many people that just speak the English language try to or pretend to translate while they don't do it right. So now, next, yeah. Now I'm going to present. Sorry, I forgot to say next. Simon says. So, well, one of the main theories using it is the communicative, the task-based language teaching, and I want to present it because the task-based translation teaching is based on the task-based language teaching, and the task-based language teaching, well, it emerged from the communicative approach, and well, it is important for my research. The one that is task-based teaching, translation teaching, because it uses tasks, and the translation task in my research here and in my practice are quite important. So that's what I wanted to show you. Next. So now we need to know this one, defining culture in social studies. We need to define what is culture, and defining culture is quite complicated. So can you tell me what is culture? Well, it's quite difficult. But what I can say is to take these two scopes, the one in the early 20th, in the early 28th century, and the one in the late 28th century. And in the early 28th century, the concept of culture was defined by two main axes. First one, the historical, in which culture is seen as a social heritage passed down through generations, and the structural axis, in which culture it is considered an organized system of patterns governing group behaviors. This is according to Prover and Kluchholm, sorry, don't mind French, I don't speak German, in 1952. And in the late 20th centuries, this vision of culture is enhanced, adding the function scope, the process, and the power or ideology scope, in which in the function scope, culture is defined as a tool for adapting or a tool for adaptation and achieving group goals. For the process, culture is seen as a dynamic, ever-changing system shaped by human interaction, and the power or ideology will consider culture as a system that maintains or challenges social hierarchies. So we can infer from this that culture is not a static list of facts or factos, as many people nowadays say. It is dynamic, structural, and functional system that shapes reality. But how this affect the translation studies, or how we can we define culture in translation studies? Well, we can take what next, please. We can take what Amigos Primeras mentioned. What analysis reveals for culture, and Amigos Primeras seeing culture as a distinctive feature of a community. For example, its values, way of life, that kind of stuff. Also, he considered culture as a norms of conventions that guide behavior, and also see culture as a means of interpreting reality through shared cognitive frameworks. And this leads to a crucial role for the translator, not as a linguistic conduit, but as a cultural agent or mediator, bridging different realities. Okay? So, next please. So, and as I said before, why we consider a translator an intercultural mediator? Well, this idea of the translator as a mediator, cultural mediator, has the theoretical roots. First of all, with what is proposed by Ruginira in 1964, which introduced the foundational concept of formal equivalence and dynamic equivalence, in which the formal equivalence focuses on the message itself in both form and content, and the dynamic equivalence, which is quite useful, aims to produce the same effect on the target audience as the source text had on its audience. This required cultural adaptation, and also what it was proposed by Julian House, who proposed the distinction between overt and covert translation, in which overt translation, the target text is clearly a translation, so you can notice it's a translation because it's tied to the source culture, political speech, and kind of stuff, and the covert translation, in which the target text appears as if it were an original, not a translation. This requires a cultural filter to adapt the text seamlessly. Okay, next, please. And well, then we have the functionalist theories, the Scopus theory, the Scopus revolution. And it says in here, functionalist theories revolutionary translation by shifting the focus from the source text to the target text corpus. So the Scopus theories, proposed by Reisenberg in 1984, mentioned that, which is the most influential functionalist model, mentioned that the central rule is that the translation strategy is determined by the purpose, which is the scopus, is the Greek word for purpose. Scopus is the Greek word for purpose on the target text, and this means a single source text can be translated in multiple ways. I mean, we can have multiple translations from a single source text, depending on its intended function for the target audience. And then Christine Nord in 1988 added the crucial concept of loyalty, and she mentioned that the translator has a responsibility not only to the target purpose, but also to the source text author's intentions and the target reader's expectations. And well, this creates an ethical balance on source text and target text, and the culture in both of them. So this is how we move from task-based language teaching to task-based translation teaching, which in which the principles of the TBLT can be directly adapted for the translator training. The objective shifts from developing communicative competence to developing translation competence through these tasks. And well, the PACME model plays an important role because it defines translation competence as an expert system of sub-competencies, including bilingual, extra-linguistic, instrumental knowledge, and the most important, the strategic sub-competence, which is the one that can help us managing the entire process of translation. So, the task-based translation teaching uses translation tasks to develop this multi-competence competence in an integrated student-centered way. So, my methodology, well, this is a qualitative study, and my method is the single case study. Why this method? Well, as Jean states, a case study is the preferred method when asking how or why questions about a contemporary phenomenon in its real life context, over which the investigator has little control. So, the research design, first of all, this is, as I mentioned before, a single case study, a longitudinal study approach was used because we tracked the same group of participants before and after the pedagogical intervention, and this allows for the evaluation of changes over time in both translation and intercultural competence at both group and individual levels. And the sample, well, it's an intentional convenience sampling was employed. 20 undergraduate students, male and female, from the Introduction to Translation Practice course, or Introducción a la Práctica de la Traducción, which is the course I'm teaching, and I hope I keep teaching. And the inclusion criteria is that students must have B1 level of English proficiency according to the Common European Framework of Reference. They must be in regular they must have regular course attendance, be of legal age, and not repeating the semester. I mean, be the first opportunity students. So, the pedagogical assessment frameworks I'm using, well, are based on the Maria Jarosz 10-session model and the validation framework proposed by Elias Soler. The Maria Jarosz 10-session model provides a pedagogical structure for developing intercultural competence, allows a systematic progression from basic cultural awareness to develop the whole package, the intercultural competence. And the validation framework proposed by Elias Soler, well, he provides the methodological basis for assessing the effectiveness of the intervention, and it emphasizes empirical validation through pre- and post-task assessments, reflective essays, and performance analysis using validated instruments like rubrics and coding schemes. And well, as I mentioned before, I'm going to use an intervention, and this is based on what is Lee's task-based translation teaching cycle is proposing. So he proposed the TBTT, or task-based translation practice, stages, and here we have the first stage, which is the pre-task. Then we have the task, the reporting stage, analysis stage, revision, reflection, and well, that's the last stage. And these 6 stages will be comprised along the 10 sessions we are going to have with the students. Well, I am going to have with the students. So the study synthesizes these 3 frameworks into a cohesive whole. Jarosz model provides the what and when, Lee provides the how for each session, and Soler provides the proof, the critical tools for assessment. The data collection instruments, well, are a pre and post test, the textual analysis, and reviews. And well, that's all. Thank you for your attention. And